Welcome to Out the Trunk with Jordan and Darius. This is our serious segment. We like to carton this off from you guys. So we like to have fun and we like to get serious from every now and again. Recently, Ta-Nehisi Coates went on the Ezra Klein Show. Ta-Nehisi Coates, for people that do not know, is a former writer at The Atlantic. He wrote his most famous writing is The Case for the Reparations he published in The Atlantic about 10 years ago. He's a New York Times bestselling author, Between the World and Me. And he released another book later that was just kind of like an amalgamation of his Atlantic articles that he just kind of
Mm.
republished in book format.
Okay.
He I think he's the writer of My President Was Black.
Yeah.
Frequent critique of the Democratic Party from the left. And Ezra Klein is probably the most prominent liberal podcaster in the United States, I would guess. New York Times writer, so on and so forth. And
Hmm.
when Charlie Kirk died, Ezra Klein wrote a piece in the New York Times article. And the gist of the piece, the headline of the piece, which to be fair, he probably
Yeah,
didn't
you got to
write,
read
was
that.
it was Charlie Kirk did politics the right way, I believe is what the headline was. Uh,
Yes.
which I want to just say for the record, I did not agree with the that piece, even though if I agree with Ezra's premise, I thought that piece was as Coates said, it was whitewashing Charlie Kirk's legacy. And
Hell yeah.
so I did not agree with that piece, but Coates responded in, I believe, Vanity Fair,
Yep.
basically calling Ezra Klein comparing him to the people who during Reconstruction sort of like
Hmm.
washed the Confederates' legacy.
Right.
Um, and so Ezra Klein and Coates are great friends, and they came on the podcast and they had what I thought was a very civil discussion about the coalitional differences. And so I will toss it to you. Did you listen to the podcast? If so, what'd you think?
Yeah. So I actually watched it back. Well, listened to it once, just
Yeah.
like on the phone. Then I actually watched it back twice after that. And I went back and read both articles so I could
Yeah.
have a little more context on what both these guys were uh talking about. Um, I, I mean, I have a lot, a lot of thoughts, a lot to say on this. First of all, I mean, honestly, I will say so. This is my introduction into Ezra Klein, so I do
Yeah.
want to say that. So this is probably the worst introduction ever to a journalist, uh, because it just to me, I feel like his biggest problem is that he was trying so hard to intellectualize um the art of civility that he placed a higher premium on concepts over people. To me, their conversation reminded me a lot of two of the famous Game of Thrones scenes where Littlefinger and Varys were talking, and they're kind of having like the battle of wits, and they're taking like thinly veiled shots at each other. And then he ends with chaos as a Varys says chaos as a whole, and Littlefinger goes, no, chaos is a ladder. This is kind of what
Yeah.
I sort of equate this conversation to. I think they both, in theory, I think they both want the same thing in theory. I think the problem is that I'll say that Ta-Nehisi, I believe, is more of a practical person, and I think that Ezra struck me as someone who
Absolutely
views
not.
this as an abstract concept.
The
Um,
exact opposite.
Interesting.
I mean,
Well, in this
Ta-Nehisi Coates will
conversation,
tell you
that's how I
himself.
read it. Yeah.
Ta-Nehisi Coates has said it on the podcast himself. I would never advise like a Democratic politician to say these things because they're
No, for
not.
sure. Yeah, he did say that. Yeah.
And so I think it's the exact opposite. I think Ezra Klein is like the pragmatic, how did that work out for you commentator, and Coates is like the I'm not like I'll let you finish your thought.
So
Sorry.
I think Ezra is more of a strategist,
Yeah.
and I think Ta-Nehisi is more of a I don't know the word, but I'll just say I'll put it this way. When I read both the articles, I read Ezra's article, and I could like almost see his brain working. I could like sense his thoughts, right? And when I read Ta-Nehisi's article, I felt something. That's kind of the
Yeah.
best way I could simplify those these two gentlemen to like their writing styles. And they're both really good writers, by the way. I will say that.
I
I
think
just
that
think to me it's
exemplifies the difference between us though, because
yeah.
I'm I
I
want
thought the same thing. I thought the same thing.
I care if it worked. I don't really care how it made me feel. And
Yeah.
I think someone made like Ezra Klein is doing politics and Coates is doing academics. And so there's the disconnect
Interesting.
there in that, in a way, coach would rather be right than win, right? Like he does not the strategy, whether the strategy is effective or not, is almost immaterial to him. He's just like,
Okay.
is it the right thing or not? And so
That's fair.
that's
That's a fair
fine.
assessment.
But like, Ezra said, and I said it in another segment, but we're clipping it, so I'll
Hmm.
say it again.
Right.
He used I wish he hadn't used abortion as a talking point,
As
because
a
abortion is actually
yes.
one of the Democrats' most popular policy points. But it's like,
Hmm.
so if he, like we said it earlier with the J.K. Rowling thing. So we changed strategies however so many years ago to
Right.
be, to all of these things. Let them play, let sports, and as long as you identify da 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 da. And my question is, how has that worked? How have you advanced? Are
Yeah.
trans rights better now than they were 5 years ago?
Right.
So what's this for? If what you're doing is
Hmm.
actively making it worse for the communities you purport to protect, then how is, like, what are we doing?
So, okay, so let me ask you this then. So, I mean, do you find, well, I'll just say this. I think whitewashing, sanitizing, and then memorializing a white nationalist is harmful as well.
I
I
agree.
think I don't see how that helps the people in the tent if we're going to use the tent metaphor, which they also spoke about in the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, you know, have we liberals, progressives, Democrats, however you want to label it, whatever, have we gone too far in terms of policing language and things of that nature? To a certain degree, yes. But there's also a reason why those things are being policed and why we have been vigilant about policing certain things. I just think that to me it becomes a point where I just found Ezra's intellectualism bordering to like it could tinker on like inhumanity to me. I'm
He
not
was
saying
being
that he is
obtuse in some
that.
spots.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I wish he hadn't wrote the Kirk piece, because
Yeah,
he's
I hated
blending
that
two
piece.
topics.
Correct.
The memorializing of Charlie Kirk, I thought, was inappropriate, and like Coach said, you could have just said nothing.
Hmm.
And that's not to say that, you know, we don't co-sign violence, and you don't, like, the reason we have politics is because we don't want Game of Thrones. We don't want
Right.
policy disputes to end in shootouts. That's why
Right.
we have elections. We Elections are a substitute for violence, and so you don't, just clear. Do not
Hmm.
want violence. Do not want violence. Do not want
Yes.
violence. But that does not mean you have to memorialize people who, I mean, like Coach said in the podcast, like, he said some outright heinous things.
He said some crazy shit.
Right. And so, but I almost detach that from the conversation of,
Hmm.
you know, the intolerance of the party when it comes to hot button issues, especially when it comes to social things. And it's like, the best example was, Barack Obama in 2008 ran opposing gay marriage.
Right.
Everyone who knew Barack Obama knew that was bullshit. Like, he didn't care.
Correct.
But what happened? He got elected, because this is a 2007, 2008 America. He
Hmm.
got elected. With that power, he appointed Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan to the
Yes.
Supreme Court justice. And then Obergefell versus, I forget, in
Hmm.
2011 happens, and we overturned gay marriage. So what happens if Obama runs, letting his pride flag fly, and loses, and John McCain wins that election? It would have made you feel better to hear him say that,
Right. But
but
we'd have
gay
been
people would
fucked.
be worse off.
Yes.
So what is
So
accomplished? Like,
that I get that,
like,
but the problem is, first of all, he picked literally the worst person to try to conflate these two ideas on to make this
yes.
to try to make his point number one, and that to me is that is as I don't say as dangerous. Well, one is dangerous, from a radical aspect, and also just Charlie Kirk wanted to harm people of color. He wanted bad things to happen to women. He wanted bad things to happen to people in the LGBTQ community. So to try to use this guy to wave your like civility flag just for
Yes.
civility's sake
Worst
was
example.
absolutely irresponsible, stupid, out of touch, obtuse. Uh, just it just reminded me of the letter from Birmingham jail about
Yep.
MLK's quote about the white moderates. That's what came to my mind when I read that article.
It's
It was
funny
like, see,
that
this is
people,
what really this is what allyship can look like if you're not careful.
I just find it funny that like I obviously that he wrote that letter, and of course, but
Yeah.
MLK was an extremely pragmatic politician.
No, for sure. Absolutely. He
Like
was a brilliant politician.
he's for my money the
He's
best man
one
this
of the best
country has.
politicians ever.
He's the best country this man's ever created. He has a holiday
Person
and
this country's ever created.
he's never served in the military and he's never held office and we have a national
Yeah.
holiday for him. He was extremely pragmatic. I mean, he
Yeah.
looked at public polls and he saw where the public was and he fine-tuned his message to appeal to those same white moderates because whether you like it or not, there are a lot of
Right.
white people in this country and you're not
No,
going
for
to
sure.
win power if you just
If you just abandon them.
if you just abandon them. And furthermore, um how do I word this?
But
It's
to Ta-Nehisi's point, he spoke love and he also was killed.
yeah.
Like again, love got him killed, like Ta-Nehisi said.
We got the I mean,
So
but
how did that
like
work out for us?
you got the Civil Rights Act, you got the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
Like, so you know, his strict message discipline and his appeal to, like, his strategy was
His strategy worked.
his strategy worked. And Obama's strategy worked. We got healthcare out of
Yes.
it. Like we
Yeah.
got gay marriage out of it. And I just think
But
as
do you
Ezra said, we've stopped trying to convince people and we've just started saying either you believe this or you don't. And if you don't, go away. And that's a
right.
losing game. I mean, it's just like the J.K. Rowling thing.
Hmm.
If she, I would venture to guess if you just did a blind poll of her policy position, she'd be to the left of center of everything except for
Yeah.
trans rights, right?
Yeah.
So you're kicking her out of the coalition and you're sending her to the other side because of one issue that you refuse to
A
moderate on.
single issue. Right.
And you're just losing power. You've kicked the comedian, the podcasters out of the coalition because they want to say the R word. Okay, cool.
Right.
They're gone. They went to the other side. You've kicked, the barstool guys out of the coalition because they like tits and they want to say that on television. Now they went to the other side. And now you got Trump in the White House. So how's that working? Like
I mean, I get that.
like you're just like we have never been we left of center people have never been less culturally
Right.
resonant than we are right now. And it's because we've become scoldy and annoying
Hmm.
and less welcoming. And if we don't change that, what is the future? Again, like I said in the early segment, what is the future
Yeah.
of a coalition
Do you
when
think the
Emma
other side
Watson
has?
isn't liberal enough for you?
No, that's a good point. But so let me ask you, the other side. What about them is welcoming to you?
They're winning. They're welcoming somebody.
How are they welcoming people? Like
All the people we
what is
kick
it,
out
what's on
vote
their?
for them.
I mean, but I'm saying, but like, okay, so let's say it's their platform is a home,
Yeah,
and they have a welcome mat.
yeah.
What is on that welcome mat?
You can be a dude here. You don't have to call your masculinity toxic. You you don't have to worry about saying the wrong thing in a work meeting and getting, whatever. You don't have to, how do I word this? You don't have to, suburban white women don't have to pretend that they want teenage boys in their girls' sports. Like you see that's the
But
thing
on
of
that
that's the thing
on that
with
but on that same welcome mat though, you'll see them saying, and I quote, "Prowling blacks go around for fun to target white people." That's
well, no,
also going to
Charlie
be on the
Kirk is
welcome
not
mat.
welcoming. I'm talking about the politicians. Charlie Kirk is not welcoming. No, I mean, he's no. But what a lot of people don't understand is that, Trump won in 2016 as the moderating candidate. He's the
Yeah,
Republican who ran saying, I'm not going to cut your Social Security. I'm not going to cut. Not was he's lying, but he ran,
yeah, he
he
was lying.
moderated.
Yeah,
He
100%.
moderates on abortion. He's not the zealot that's out there like ban all abortions. He's the one that's like, I'm gonna send it to the states. And if we're gonna do a ban, it's at 12 weeks. And I'm cool with IVF. And like you don't see Trump's moderation because you find him morally abhorrent. But he does
True.
make outward appeals to the middle of the country in a way that Democrats just do not anymore. You just don't see them that way. But like he moderates on
Fair.
abortion. He campaigns like for years. Mitt Romney and John McCain and George W. Bush, they wanted to privatize Social Security and cut
Right.
Medicaid, and those are all things that the median American doesn't want to do. But
Yeah.
Trump saw that, okay, this is where the Republican Party is out of step with the median American voter. So here's what I can do to moderate.
Yeah.
He does that with abortion. He like if you notice it, Republican activists are so much more lenient on their politicians than Democratic activists. Like Trump can come out tomorrow and
Hmm.
say, "I'm for IVF. I'm for a 16-week ban on abortion. I'm willing to send it to the
Hmm.
states." And like pro-life activists won't give him shit for it. They'll give him the space because they know he'll get elected. He'll appoint Brett Kavanaugh. He'll appoint Amy Coney Barrett. He'll appoint Neil Gorsuch, and then they'll just overturn Roe
That's
v.
true.
Wade. We don't allow if I don't know who's going to run in 2028. If Kamala Harris
Probably
had
Gavin
come out
Newsom.
and said explicitly,
Hmm.
I believe sports should be segregated by gender. I believe, give me something else to moderate on.
Uh,
What's the other one? Abortion she doesn't need to moderate on, but
well, you're right.
the
I
they
don't
them ad
know.
killed her. But if she had
Not
said
not
that,
maybe like not raising minimum wage or something like that. I don't
right,
know.
they would like LGBT activists would have boycotted her. They would not have given her the space to make those
Yeah,
moves.
that's true.
And again, do you really believe if she had gotten elected that she would have like passed anti-trans? No. But like
Right.
we've stopped playing politics is my point. Um, and politics is about power. And if you're
It
not
is,
winning,
but
you're not protecting anybody. Because if you don't win, how are you protecting abortion if you lose? How are you protecting trans rights if you lose? And
okay, I
like
get
that's
you. Do so. Well, I forgot to mention this earlier. Well, so when Ezra made that point, it's like, okay, well, the differences between President Obama is he was an actual politician who was running for positions
yeah,
as opposed to the guy who got killed. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's not there's a difference between a political bait and switch in an election, which every candidate does. Because
yeah,
if you're left leaning, you got to move a little bit right. If you're right, you got to move a little bit left to get, the
right.
popular vote. I mean, we all know that. So it's important to say that just for listeners. Um, but I also just, what did you think about his? I mean, you mentioned him being obtuse. I just found him to be very dismissive of anything that a lot of things that Ta-Nehisi was trying to make in terms of the historical context of race politics and political violence and the black community, our community being subject to political violence for as long as this country has been in existence. I felt like
Um,
he was trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater on that one.
like I said before, I think Charlie Kirk is a bit of a red herring in that this isn't
Yeah,
really the conversation that, needs to be had.
yeah.
But in the same way, um, how do I word this? A lot of so one of the problems is in politics is that minority activists, so
Hmm.
like let's say you're Kamala Harris, you're Hillary Clinton,
Right.
you're Pete Buttigieg. You want to
Hmm.
hear what the Latino community, the Black community, the Asian community, Asian, Japanese community, Chinese community want to know. So you go to
Right.
Ta-Nehisi Coates, a Black academic. You go to
Hmm.
a Latino academic. By and large, the views of Ta-Nehisi Coates are not actually the views of Black voters. Black voters are
Yeah.
overwhelmingly more conservative than Ta-Nehisi
Correct.
Coates. And so I thought it was very telling when he sort of yada, yada, yada past Ezra's question. Well, what do you say about Trump increasing his margins with Black voters? And the follow up, if I were there, were do you
Hmm.
think you're out of step, Mr. Coates, with Black voters? Do you think your views
Interesting.
are in line with Black voters? Because you're a Black academic. Most Black people aren't
Are
professors
not
at Howard.
academics. Right.
Like so if you walk into a Black barbershop, that's far more reflective of the Black vote than you are.
True. Well,
Um,
he did say that, it would he made the point that I'm trying to word it
there's always been Black
correctly.
conservatives.
Yeah, there's always been
Uh,
black conservatives, and the only reason that we are shocked at the numbers now is because we were so accustomed to the numbers being lower because of Obama's presidency
right.
that they're actually just regressing back to the mean.
I just think he yada yada past that because
Interesting.
I think to a Black academic that almost shatters their worldview. And what I say is that
Hmm.
so the Civil Rights Act passes and Black people like it's signed in law by Lyndon B. Johnson in a Black
Right.
Congress. And so Black people basically they gave us the Democratic Party gave the civil rights, so we're gonna vote for them. And the Democratic Party for the past 50 years has been propped up by the fact that black people of all ideological spectrum across the whole thing have
Hmm.
voted for them out of racial solidarity.
Right.
And I don't think they have a plan for a world where race is less salient in politics. Because
Yeah, that is true. You're right.
what happens if black people with conservative views, because you all know, I know plenty of black religious people who do not like
Of
abortion.
course.
I know plenty of
Absolutely.
black religious people who have heinously homophobic views. I know plenty of
Absolutely.
small business owners who do not want their taxes increased. I know plenty of black homeowners who are terrible landlords because they if you just did a blind poll, they would sound like Republicans. What
Yeah,
happens if they're
absolutely.
just like, I'm gonna vote my views and not vote for Democrats out of racial solidarity?
Yeah,
What's the
most black people,
plan?
a lot of black people are just non-racist Republicans.
Right. And so it's almost like, what is the plan for a world where race is less salient in politics? It's like Coates is like frozen in 2020.
Mm,
He kind of
yeah.
like yada yada past it. He didn't want to hear it. And I've yet to hear a black politician, a black academic actually reckon with the fact that Trump increased, as racist as you want to call him, and he is that,
He is that.
he increased his share with minority voters across the board.
Yeah.
So what does that say? You're supposed to be the party for minorities and they're leaving
Hmm.
you.
Yeah.
So, like a lot of black people don't want to hear that they're perpetual victims. I get it. The history, listen, I know the history. I've read all Ta-Nehisi Coates. He's probably my favorite writer. I thought that last book where he just kind of parachuted into Palestine and
Hmm.
Israel to be a bit inappropriate. Like he went to Israel for 2 weeks and wrote a book and acted like an
Oh,
expert. It's
okay.
like, don't do that. Uh, but listen, I mean, my foray into politics was reading his case for reparations in the Atlantic. I used
Mm,
to when Obama would do his his pull your pants up speeches, and when Obama went to Morehouse and did the commencement speech and did the whole basically did a Bill Cosby rant, about
yeah.
I found that highly inappropriate, and I felt like when Coates criticized him from the left for that he was speaking for me at the time.
Hmm.
But I just feel like Coates is frozen in that time. Like he has
Yeah.
not adjusted for the world before him. And, it felt like watching Shaq on the Celtics. It was like, dude, like, my
That's
guy is
crazy.
washed. Like he's not processing the world that he's in, and he's still frozen in 2019.
Do you
Uh,
think, I think, I think for me, I think the crux of what his uh view was hung on was like just the everyday like life
yeah,
aspect of trying to uh trying to coexist with people who have such views that so extremely oppose your own existence.
yeah,
It's almost to the point where it's like, okay, well, what's the point of having a conversation? Or is there even or can you have a conversation? If so, at what point do you realize that you cannot have a conversation with these people? And I think that was more so the area that he was coming from, which I get, I understand. I mean, I feel like that's sometimes too. I'm almost like I don't know how to navigate it because it's like, what's the point of like you're never gonna get me to agree that uh black and brown people and women and LGBTQ people are less than that. I'm never
right.
gonna subscribe to that. But it's like, okay, so what clearly is there a middle ground, I guess. I think was more so his point.
I think he's conflating, and that's the point. Like the advocacy started as equal rights, equal
Hmm.
protection. Obviously, they're people, and it just sort of bled into you're not allowed to oppose this in any way, shape, or form. And so
Mm,
if it had
yeah,
just stayed, we're here for equal rights, we're here for equal protection,
right,
that's fine. But it quickly became Emma Watson isn't liberal enough on this issue.
right.
And again, at some point, like, Emma Watson, who I thought handled that as best as she could,
She did. She
and she
did.
got
She handled it
attacked
very
by
tactfully.
activists because she wasn't pure enough. And if your purity test, if Emma Watson doesn't pass your purity test, what's your future?
Right. She's one of the few child stars who, you know, did it right. Or, you know. Um, I will say I found problematic in Ezra's rhetoric was he kept using the word experiment.
Yeah.
And a lot of and I went online, I kind of checked out some of the fan reaction to the interview and stuff like that. And it just read very it just read so tone deaf. Like it just almost it's like, okay, democracy is technically an experiment and it is uh a new political system
Yeah.
comparative to the age of this country. Um, but like these are people's lives that are at stake here. These are people's rights that are at stake here. And I think that's where he lost a lot of people as well, just like the language.
I
And that may be some liberal sensitivity possibly, but um, that's something that a common trend that I noticed in the comments for sure.
yeah, I agree. I think getting hung up on language is part of the problem.
Hmm.
And two, to just to close the segment because we're running long,
Okay, yeah,
politics is about power. And how are you going to protect the people if you're not winning? And if you just
right,
look at if just brass tacks results-based business, are the rights, are abortion rights, are trans rights better or worse than they were 5 years ago? And if your answer is worse, you
yeah,
have to question if what you're doing is working.
true.